Well, here we go. After months of speculation and conversation, it is time to go to the polls. They opened up 5 minutes ago in Jackson County, and we cannot wait to see how this plays out today with the 3/8 cent sales tax on the ballot, extending this for the Chiefs and the Royals, and figuring out whether we wake up tomorrow and we're talking about a lot of drama, where the Royals go from here, what this all means for the region at large, or whether or not it remains status quo. That's what today is about. Now, yes, there are other very local elections on the Missouri side of the state line, and we will do candidate call-ins at 7:45 this morning. We'll get to all that if you're running for local office. But today is about really one thing and one thing only when it comes to people's attentions in this town. And that is this 3/8 cent sales tax. And by the way, it is not just the number one story and a top story here locally. This story has garnered national attention. This was in Politico's daily newsletter yesterday. Politico, yes, the political operation out of Washington, D.C. They sent out a daily newsletter. And their daily newsletter, about halfway down, included multiple paragraphs about what's going on today in this town. They write here, voters in Kansas City, now they meant Jackson County, but voters in Kansas City, they write, head to the polls on Tuesday to decide whether to approve a new sales tax that would raise a couple $2 billion of new revenues to help the stadium situation for two local professional sports franchises. Major League Baseball's Royals are pushing to build a new downtown stadium, while the National Football League's Chiefs are seeking to do major renovations. The article goes on to note later on the tax is scheduled to expire in 2031 and would continue even if voters oppose the current ballot measure on Tuesday. They go on to note it's the latest example of team owners seeking public money to help with stadiums, either from their current location or from jurisdictions hungry to attract professional teams. Adding economists and experts basically from across the political spectrum believe that professional sports stadiums are not a good use of taxpayer resources, and yet it's still quite common for state and local governments to help out with arenas and stadiums. So we'll find out today. And as you go to the polls, I want to know, and I want to hear from you at 913-408-7957, whether or not the lines seem longer, if they're existent. I heard last night on one of our local newscasts that early voter turnout was double what it would normally be in an election like this, which is a great sign. I'm also not surprised. When you have $3 million in advertising, you have the Chiefs and the Royals on the ballot, people are going to show up. They're going to vote. Now, I predicted on Friday that the yes vote will win today. I believe it's going to be close. But I do think the yes vote ekes it out because, in part, money talks in politics. It's not everything, just ask Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, but it certainly does go a long way. And I do believe there's a silent majority of voters who are afraid to admit they're a yes vote. The loudest people on social media, the loudest people on the streets are no votes. But when it comes to the silent majority, the people who say, you know, I love these teams, I love what they bring to our community. I might not love the Royals' plans downtown, but there's not much that unifies us anywhere in America and in Kansas City in 2024. The Chiefs and the Royals do just that. Even when both teams are struggling, and obviously one team has struggled much more than the other one in recent memory, they bring people together around a unifying thing that we can all get behind. And we've seen that over the last decade between both of these teams. A couple of World Series appearances for the Royals, of course, including that win in 2015. And we all know about the Chiefs' success in recent years. So that's part of the reason that I believe when people get into that voting booth today, it won't be about whether or not they love Kauffman Stadium. And most people that I talk to do. I do. I love going out there with my daughters and enjoying a game and having a beer and eating a hot dog and the whole thing. But in the end, the Royals have made it clear they're not going to be staying at Kauffman Stadium. So if you know no matter what, the biggest issue that you have with this team is the place they're leaving, but you know that no matter what, they're not staying. Do you walk into that voting booth today and say, you know what? I've been paying this tax for 25 plus years. If you're a Jackson County resident, I love what these two teams bring to our community. And while I hate the fact that they're leaving the K, does it make sense for me to vote no when I know I can't get them to stay? That's the question that I think a lot of voters are going to be asking themselves today when they walk into those polls. And I do think it's going to be a coin flip either way. The no vote is not just comprised of far left progressives. It also is including, of course, more traditional conservative people that might have their various reasons, many of who we've talked to on this show, you, the caller, who have said why you're voting no. So I can respect that 110%, whatever you decide to do today. But I'll tell you right now, one of the groups that I have no sympathy for, and there's many of them when it comes to being on the no side of this, these are the kind of groups that would make me want to run into the polls and vote yes. And it's not just the KC Tenants wackos. They're obviously on their own island. But it's also groups like the Sunrise Movement. They're a KC Tenants wannabe. They are far left, progressive, climate activists. And they confronted John Sherman yesterday in a parking lot as he was walking into his own vehicle. Now, John Sherman, who we had on the show last week, this is not a guy who's walking around with half a dozen, big burly security guys around him. He's just, kind of like your grandpa, walking to his car, minding his own business. And take a listen to how that confrontation went yesterday.
John Sherman, you made millions off of gas. You polluted our planet, and now you want us to pay for the destruction of the crossroads? Why can't you fund this project yourself? Why won't you listen to Kansas Cityans? We don't want this pet project. We want affordable housing and better buses. Why can't you use your dirty gas money? Why are you running?
Your dirty gas money? Why are you running? Oh my gosh, I'm a loser. I need a job. I need to get out of my mom's basement. These people are pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. They are clown shows. They don't deserve an ounce of our time. And a part of me, if I was a Jackson County voter, would go in and vote yes, just because John Sherman has had to put up with these morons for the last few months.
Well, it seems like a phenomenon of stunted adolescence permeates this country, unfortunately.
Yes.
Right?
And it has come to Kansas City.
Why are you acting like you're 12 or 13?
Well, because they get social media clicks out of it.
Well,
that's it.
And that's because that's as old as they are.
Yeah.
Mentally.
That's where their mental acuity is. And those are the kind of individuals that, listen, there are compelling reasons to vote no, but then there's also those people. John Sherman's dirty oil money. I just want a better bus, man. Okay, well, go talk to the city council about that. Why is that his job? 913-408-7957. As you get up, you get going this morning, maybe you've been on the fence and you woke up today with clarity on how you want to vote, how you're going to vote as you go to the polls. We want to hear from you. We will be hearing from you. There's not a lot of guests today because we've heard from all the guests, including Mark Donovan, the Chiefs team president, who was on this show yesterday. And I asked him about the threats coming from both teams, including the Chiefs, if the no vote does not come through. Or I should say if the no vote does go through. How did he respond to that? Differently than I expected. We'll play that for you coming up next on 95.7 FM KCMO. It is Election Day on the Missouri side of our state line, and we will do local candidate call-ins at 7:45 this morning. But today, let's be honest, the focus is on one thing and one thing only, and that is Jackson County. And that's what you, the taxpayer, decide to do today when it comes to the Chiefs and the Royals and this 3/8 cent tax that is on the ballot that you are looking to extend potentially for the next 40 years as the Royals look to go downtown in a controversial move to the Crossroads, and the Chiefs look to make those upgrades at Arrowhead Stadium. 913-408-7957. You'll also hear from Mark Donovan, who was on this show yesterday, coming up in a few minutes on KCMO Talk Radio. Let's go to you. John is in Independence. He's on KCMO first up. What's up, John? Good morning.
Hey, Pete. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, that clip that you just played with them crackpots chasing after John Sherman, that kind of pushed me over the edge for a yes vote, because I don't want to see crazy leftists get a win in this city.
So really for you, John, you have not voted yet. You were on the fence, and because of that clip I just played with wacko lefties confronting John Sherman, you're now a yes vote today.
Well, and then not just that, but like when they would show the yellow shirt weirdos on TV doing their thing, it's just like I can't stand leftists, and I can't stand progressives. They're just, there's something wrong in the head with these people, and I don't want to see them get a win.
Well, there you go, John in Independence. Thanks very much, man. Appreciate you kicking it off this morning.
You betcha.
All right. If you missed the clip, here it is. This is the group called the Sunrise Movement. They're like KC Tenant wannabes confronting John Sherman here in the last couple of days as the guy is walking to his own vehicle. He doesn't have security around him. He's just, an elder statesman walking to his car, and then these goobers show up.
John Sherman, you made millions off of gas. You polluted our planet, and now you want us to pay for the destruction of the Crossroads? Why can't you fund this project yourself? Why won't you listen to Kansas Cityans? We don't want this pet project. We want affordable housing and better buses. Why can't you use your dirty gas money? Why are you running?
Give me your dirty gas money so I can get a couple electric buses that don't work around town.
The inflection's kind of funny, too. Gas money!
Yeah. You see, that's like the Sunrise Movement is like the minor leagues, and then you get called up to KC Tenants once you kind of, get the chance down and get your yellow shirt. It's like being in the mob. When you're a made man, you get to be in KC Tenants, but you got to start off in the Sunrise Movement. That's how it works.
That's a great point.
Yes.
Great point.
Thank you. 913-408-7957. Let's go to where do we want to go here? Jeff in Kansas City. Jeff, you're next up. What's up, buddy?
You know what? You are doing the Lord's work, my friend, because I'll tell you what, you're exposing something that none of us know about, and I am a big no guy, but I'll tell you what, I listen to that garbage of them harassing him. Hey, you don't agree with the guy, I get it. You can just go vote no, and that's it. But being monsters like that is not a Midwestern thing. That's not a Kansas City thing. And me, who was Mr. No until about 10 minutes ago, would go and pull the lever for yes, just because I would never want those people to win, because they are the detriment of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you, buddy. 913-408-7957. I didn't say this. I haven't said this on the air yet. Let me save the story because I want to get to more of you. But Jeff hit on something there that I do want to expand on, and that is the way some people involved in this process with the Royals and the Chiefs, most notably with the Royals, have been treated by people like that. So I will do more of that coming up here on KCMO. Mike in Kansas City. Go, Mike.
Yeah, you're totally wrong. They don't want electric buses and affordable housing. She wants to get multi-million dollars so she can buy mansions just like the Black Lives Matter people. That way she can go on The View. She can go on Rachel Madcow's show, go with Morning Joe and talk about what a great person she is, all the while she's flying between her houses and in her private jet. Don't take any of these leftists seriously.
A little jealousy.
They're all out to make money.
All right, jealousy. Yes, they just like good old Bernie Sanders, the socialist who has 3 homes. I see what you're saying. Jeff in Kansas City. What's up, Jeff? Good morning. Excuse me, Tim in Brookside. Tim.
Oh, hey. Good morning. I wanted to say that I'm still a no vote. I mean, those people went about the wrong way, harassing the guy, but at the same time, I mean, I would like to verbally talk to him and say, hey, why are you going to just place all my friends that have businesses in the Crossroads and create more traffic problems than there already are. I mean, I went to one of my friends' places here a while back, and Drake concert was at the Sprint Center, and you couldn't find parking for miles. I mean, it was really hard to go see a show at some other place, and now they're going to put that down there, and or they want to put that down there, and there's going to be it's just going to be even harder to park unless they're going to build a humongous parking garage.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I mean, like I said, I have like 5 friends who have different businesses down there that are going to be impacted. And on top of that, with the streetcar expansion, man, Midtown Kansas City is just horror, and it's been that way ever since COVID. And so, I mean, I guess I could ride the streetcar down there, but it would it doesn't even go to my house.
Yeah. Listen, there's a lot of compelling reasons on the no side, and you listed some of them, which is, do people want to go downtown for baseball? I get it. I mean, that is one of the reasons a lot of people are going to go vote no. There's also compelling reasons to go out there and vote yes. Mark Donovan was on this show yesterday, Chiefs team president, and I asked him, in part, is he disappointed or regretful in how this has gone down the last few weeks, where now the teams have resorted to saying, well, if this doesn't pass on Tuesday, today, we might have to look elsewhere. Here's what Mark Donovan said.
We all wish that this would have been a smoother process. We all wish that we would have gotten to a lot of the points we've gotten in the process a lot quicker. It's unfortunate that people look at it that way, but I understand it. I respect it. One of the things I truly believe in is the democratic process, and we should all do the research, and we should all come to our own conclusions and cast your own vote. I think that when you look at the comment of what happens if, I look at it from a different lens. I look at it from, and we've got a great partnership. We've been partners for a long time. We've invested in this community. We're the ones taking the risk on actually creating a concert business at Arrowhead that brings hundreds of thousands of people out to Arrowhead and brings people from all over the world to Arrowhead. I think when you look at what we've done in this particular case is we've taken a really good partnership and we've made it much better for the county.
That was Mark Donovan, Chiefs president, yesterday right here on this show on KCMO. And I heard a guy who was more humble and more contrite than some of the other interviews. And I'll explain why, and also get to some of the other things that these lefty groups have done to some of these people right after the news, and get to your calls on KCMO. The polls are open. They've been open for 35 minutes. I see our buddy Nathan Brennan, KCTV5, is out and about at the polling locations, and it looks pretty quiet right now, but there's some people trickling in behind him. The early bird gets the worm, as they say. So, if I wasn't here, I'd be out voting at 6 a.m. just to get out of the house. Can't sleep much past 4 o'clock anyway these days, especially with the little one screaming away in the bedroom. So that's just how it goes. But before the break, I mentioned this, and I wanted to expand on it a little bit. And I'm not going to share any of the individuals involved because they didn't give me a green light to talk about them and what they've personally gone through. But I feel safe and comfortable sharing this much, that especially when I was out at Kauffman Stadium last week and we had on a bunch of people involved with the Royals, many of whom have been forward-facing individuals in the last few months, especially the last few weeks, with this controversial Royals move downtown taking up a lot of time and attention. They shared with me some of the social media messages and emails and voicemails and things of that nature that they've received from many people who are voting no today. And it's pretty disgusting. It's pretty disgraceful. It's pretty despicable. Now, it's not people in this audience who are voting no. Many of you have very legitimate reasons for why you're voting no. There's no doubt the process has been a debacle. There has not been nearly the transparency and partnership that the teams have claimed throughout this process over the last bunch of weeks and months. That is indisputable. And I believe deep down, they've basically admitted as much to me on the show, whether it was Mark Donovan yesterday and some of what, he said that we played before the break, whether it was John Sherman, the owner of the Royals, who was on this show late last week as well. There was a contrite approach that many of these individuals have had, especially when they've joined us in recent weeks, and we've asked them questions other people, frankly, just have missed the boat on, to where you can sense that they regret how this whole thing has played out. Now, they won't necessarily, I believe, look in the mirror like they should for why this thing has been such a boondoggle of a process. And it's not all their fault. They can point at Frank White all they want. No doubt he's been a debacle throughout this thing as well. But it takes two to tango. It's not exclusively Frank White's fault. And I say that as somebody who has blamed Frank for a lot of things in this county over the last bunch of months. But it's not exclusively his fault. The teams have made mistakes. That being said, they're human beings. And you have had a lot of no voters, but not no voters in this audience, like normal people with jobs and lives and families who have legitimate reasons for voting no. But groups like KC Tenants, like the Sunrise Movement group that I played for you earlier this morning, who was harassing John Sherman as he was walking out of his vehicle a couple of days ago, and this took place.
John Sherman, you made millions off of gas. You polluted our planet, and now you want us to pay for the destruction of the crossroads? Why can't you fund this project yourself? Why won't you listen to Kansas Cityans? We don't want this project. We want affordable housing and better buses. Why can't you use your dirty gas money? Why are you running?
Why are you running? I mean, it's just cringe. It's groups like that who, when I talked to people around the Royals last Thursday, I mean, they shared with me some of the messages that they've received, some of the attacks, the threats, and not just against them, but family members as well. As someone who's been on the receiving end of things like that, I can empathize with them. Now, this isn't me saying, oh, poor Royals employees, go vote yes so they can get their downtown ballpark. That's not at all what I'm saying. My point is, no matter what comes out of today, no matter how the outcome does go down, I would hate to think that if the no vote wins, these people will feel emboldened to act like utter scumbags in our backyard, in our communities. And that's my great fear. No matter how this thing plays out today, the Democratic process will have won. Whether it's the no vote or the yes vote, the Democratic process will have played out, and you, the Jackson County taxpayer, will have decided if you're comfortable continuing this 3/8 cent sales tax for these teams. But at the same time, there is a part of me, and I've said this for weeks now, and I know some of you disagree with me, but I've said for weeks, while the no vote has compelling arguments, transparency has not been there. The economic benefits from regressive taxes like sales taxes on these projects are very much debatable. And there's strong arguments to make against them out of principle, if nothing else. But thinking that we're going to put some of these people who are with some of the most radical groups in Kansas City in a spotlight if the no vote wins out, put them on pedestals and say the future of Kansas City is KC Tenants, is the Sunrise Movement. That makes me sick to my stomach. Because while they may have a point on regressive sales taxes that impact the poor more than anybody else, paying for downtown baseball stadiums, while they may have a point on that, most things, 99% of what they advocate for is pure insanity and nonsense and will destroy this city and this community. The vast majority of it. But, every once in a while, I guess you can say, understandably so, the blind squirrel will find a nut. And that's basically where the tenants find themselves right now. But I hate the thought process. I hate the idea of having them get an ounce more of power in and around Kansas City. 913-408-7957. That's our studio line. That's our text line on KCMO. Pete, those crazy groups aren't going anywhere regardless of the outcome. No, I don't think they're going anywhere. You're absolutely right on the text line, 7653. I'm not suggesting they're going anywhere necessarily. They're not going anywhere. But they have a chance, unfortunately, to expedite their long-term vision for this town. And their long-term vision is really not just about the Royals and the Chiefs, right? This is just part of their game. Their long-term vision is to create Kansas City and make it a mini San Francisco. And they're doing it with leadership, by the way, who some of them grew up here, went to places like Shawnee Mission East, and then after that, went to Harvard. I mean, you've got people running these KC tenants groups who are some of the most privileged individuals in the entire Kansas City area with Harvard degrees, growing up and going to Shawnee Mission East. And they think they're for the little guy. They're fighting for the worker. And all they really want to do is create Kansas City and turn it into a commie sanctuary city. Forget sanctuary city and that term when it comes to, people who are here illegally. They want to make it a socialist sanctuary city. That's what they want to do. And that's a good tongue twister we should start using on KCMO, a socialist sanctuary city. So it's just one of my fears on if no wins out. But as I've said, there are compelling cases to make across the board. And no, I'm in no way advocating for how the teams have handled this because it has not been handled well at all. But in the end, you're talking about whether or not it makes sense to extend a tax that is already being paid. That is a slightly better deal for the taxpayer because the teams will take on their insurance costs and some of the other things and basically guarantee them staying in Jackson County for decades to come. That's what you're going to be deciding today. And if you're going to the polls early this morning, we want to hear from you and see what those lines look like at 913-408-7957. It's great to be here as we roll through the 6 o'clock hour on Election Day on KCMO. 1 hour from now, we will do candidate call-ins. I know there's a lot of other local races on the Missouri side. If you are a candidate and you want to make a 1 to 2 minute pitch, and you got to keep it quick, we got a lot of people we want to get to. We'll do that at 7:45 this morning right here on KCMO, 913-408-7957. Elsewhere, speaking about economics and where we're at, the real minimum wage is what? What is the real minimum wage? Not what they tell you the minimum wage is. What is the real effective minimum wage? We'll get to that and explain why we're talking about it with fast food workers next on KCMO. Hey, don't forget it's still Tuesday. So that means Tirade Tuesday is happening at 8:35. Do not miss it here on KCMO Talk Radio. That's your chance every Tuesday at 8:30. That's your segment, basically. And it's become a staple here on the show to just rant and rave and rip on whatever is on your mind before you get to the office. So that's why we do it 8:30 on Tuesdays here on KCMO. Tirade Tuesday. Start thinking about your tirade. Something tells me we'll have a good one set up for today. Now, what is the real minimum wage? The real minimum wage. Like, not what Bernie Sanders gets on his high horse and cries about how the minimum wage should be. We were at $15 an hour, but now it's like, what, $20 an hour? I think Bernie's screaming about. Who knows? I don't know. He's always got something on his mind where he's yelling and hooting and hollering and, putting together his nonsense about how he needs to pursue minimum wage increases so Bernie can buy a fourth home and sell another book or something. But the real effective minimum wage is $0. That's right, $0. The government can artificially increase wages, but in the end, the marketplace will win out. The marketplace will figure out how to do more with less, or at least the same with less, if they are pushed into a corner, into that situation. And that's exactly what you're seeing happen in California, by the way. California yesterday increased its minimum wage to $20 an hour for fast food workers. Now, how bizarre is this? They have targeted a specific industry. Why? I don't know. They have targeted a specific industry to increase wages artificially. It's one of the dumbest things they could do, to target an industry that does not work on big margins. I know you can sit there and you can say, well, look at the McDonald's CEO. He's making this many millions of dollars. It's just sexy for politicians. That's all it is. It's not based in any kind of reality. It's just sexy for politicians to say, I'm going to help the guy flipping burgers against the big bad CEO of the fast food company.
Why won't you share some of your dirty hamburger money?
Yeah, that's right. So here was this report yesterday from California as they got set to increase their minimum wage for fast food workers to $20 an hour. And you hear from some of the people who actually work in the industry, and they realize the pitfalls of this.
It's one of the highest minimum wages in the country, and the first time state lawmakers have mandated a minimum wage for just one industry. Supporters say it's time for the billion-dollar corporations to pay a living wage.
How's it going?
But many franchise owners, like Jessica Diambra, who runs 11 McDonald's around L.A., say the law puts an unfair strain on their businesses already operating on slim margins.
Do you feel targeted that it's specifically for fast food? Yes, and I think people just don't realize that. They see this big McDonald's brand and just think, oh, they've got all the money in the world, and it's just that's not at all how it is.
McDonald's, Chipotle, and Starbucks already saying they plan to raise prices to offset the rising labor costs. Pizza Hut preemptively laid off 1,200 delivery drivers like Michael Ojeda.
I was very frustrated. A lot of us got our jobs taken from us.
He was let go after 8 years.
Well, what's the point of the raise if you don't have a job anymore?
Hey, that guy came to the obvious conclusion here. What's the point of the raise if you don't have a job anymore? It's like the light bulb went off in the guy's head, John.
That's twice this year. We need to save these little epiphanies. We had, I feel like the First Amendment hamstrings the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot who said that, but yes.
Is it Ketanji Brown Jackson?
Right? Ketanji Brown Jackson. You're right.
Okay. Because
yes.
I get all hyphenated names messed up.
It might be Ketanji Jackson Brown. No. It's Brown Jackson. You're right. Yes. The Supreme Court Justice.
Yeah.
But these little epiphanies.
Yeah. Isn't it funny to be there right when they happen?
Yes. This guy's been a delivery driver for Pizza Hut for 8 years. You know, he probably didn't make a lot, but he probably did okay on the tips. That's what you would hope for, at least, for a delivery driver. That's the purpose of that job. So then he's all excited. He's going to be getting $20 an hour. He's, doing his little happy dance and the whole thing. And then he gets blown out. Because, by the way, who the heck is going to pay a delivery driver $20 an hour? The whole point of that job is you make most of your money off of tips, right? That's the purpose of it. So now that guy's going to be making like, what, he's probably going to be making close to $50 an hour when all is said and done if he was actually cleaning up at $20 an hour as a delivery driver. So finally they said, screw it. We can't afford this as a Pizza Hut. And then he has this epiphany. And he goes, wait, hold on a second. It's a lot better to make maybe $15 an hour with tips and actually have a job than it is to have the government forcing my employer to pay me X amount an hour, $20 an hour, and then get laid off because they can't afford me. Boy, it wasn't so bad, was it? See, but this is all about the politicians. It's not actually about the working man and the working woman. They mask it as such, and people who don't know basic economics buy into it, but it's for their own political clout and their own political power. Because, by the way, that guy then, has to go on unemployment probably for a little bit. The government then gets him on the dole, and it's a win-win for them. They get to look like heroes to the masses who don't know any better and talk about how they're fighting the big bad corporation for the little guy, $20 an hour. And then when people inevitably start getting laid off, they can get them on the government dole and, look like the good guys and help them out. Don't worry, we're for the government, and we're here to help. What, the 7 scariest words, as Ronald Reagan once put it. That's exactly what they're doing and working to a T in California. This will be an utter failure. And there's no doubt about it that, as you heard from one McDonald's franchise owner there in that clip, this is not about getting after the CEO of McDonald's. These are small business owners, essentially, that the government is forcing to pay people more money than, frankly, they're worth, than their skill sets are worth. That's a fact. And you know what else it'll do? It'll bring more robots into a McDonald's. Go into your McDonald's. You're not going to see a lot of people anymore. So jobs naturally are going to go away. There will be attrition of these jobs. 913-408-7957 is how you join us.
Wages based on that minimum also go up in the union.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
There's a ripple effect.
It will impact everything in the workforce. As we sit here on a Tuesday, Election Day morning on KCMO Talk Radio, this is getting national attention here around town. What we are dealing with today, as you go to the polls, is getting national attention. I have another example of that coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Politico, the Washington Post, Bloomberg, they're all watching Jackson County today at 7:05 on an Election Day Tuesday on KCMO. It is great to be here with you. I feel like, been talking about this forever. That's in part because we have. It has been well over a year since this process began. For the Royals to move somewhere, we didn't know where it was going to be. It was maybe Clay County, it was downtown, it was the East Village, and then it became the Crossroads. And for the Chiefs, the upgrades to Arrowhead Stadium. Of course, the far less controversial part of today's vote, but still an interesting thing to follow and watch. So Bloomberg, this was written by Bloomberg yesterday. It starts off here, just so you know how big a deal this is. This is not just in our little bubble here in Kansas City. Last hour, I told you about the Politico piece. They sent this out in their daily newsletter yesterday. Bloomberg also writing here, "We need you," declares Travis Kelce. "Let's keep this rolling," commands Patrick Mahomes. What they want is for Kansas City voters to approve a tax that would raise as much as $2 billion of taxpayer money for 2 stadiums. The revenue would fund the relocation of the Royals baseball team to a new downtown ballpark so the NFL's Chiefs can expand into the space now occupied by the Royals at the team's joint sports complex. In spite of the appeal from the beloved Stars, who led the Chiefs to a second straight Super Bowl win in February, the approval's not a lock. A poll by Remington Research Group found that 47% of respondents would vote yes, 46% would vote no, according to local TV. Opponents of the measure have said the team's billionaire owners should chip in more than the $300 million they've promised towards the Arrowhead renovation, and the Royals, who finished up with the second worst record in baseball last year, are owned by a group led by John Sherman. The county spends more money on the 2 sports teams every year than we do on our parks and playgrounds, public hospitals, roads, and bridges combined. Frank White Jr., the Jackson County executive, and former Royals Hall of Fame second baseman who opposes the measure, said in a statement. So the article goes on to note a lot of things that we know. Then there's the Washington Post piece as well. Headline here in the Washington Post yesterday. In sports-crazed Kansas City, a proposed stadium tax exposes deep divisions. And the article starts off by talking about a lady who was a teenager in 1969 when Ewing Kauffman announced a partnership with the YMCA to fund baseball and softball teams, a choral group, and other programs for inner-city high school kids. Her name is Denise Brown. She was then a teenager on the east side. And she joined the drill team. She performed at Municipal Stadium between doubleheaders and became a fan for life. Yet, as the Washington Post writes on March 19th, she disrupted Royals brass at a listening session at Arrowhead Stadium wearing the colors of an opposing team, the yellow and black of the KC Tenants. The Washington Post calls the KC Tenants an influential 10,000-member tenants' rights and housing advocacy group. And then they write here, Denise Brown asking the teams, in this crowd, people want to know, why should us working people subsidize billionaires? Well, that is something that we asked the people in charge over the last few days. John Sherman was on this show on Friday. That was Thursday for opening day. And I asked him that very question. Why should you, the Jackson County taxpayer, pay for his ballpark? And here's what John Sherman said.
I get that question all the time. And you think about a small market like this, it's really about, I want a local partner. We want a community partner. This has been a great partnership for 52 years. We just talked about parts of it. I want to make sure that this team is tied to this community. A small market team. We're the smallest market in the U.S. with an MLB and an NFL franchise. like in a lot of things, we punch above our weight class. And if we have a community partner, then we have a 40-year lease with the community. That's going to make sure that we're connected to the community in a way that I may or may not. Well, I definitely won't be here at the end of the 40 years, but I assume we'll.
Well, these last few months have taken a little time off of that, right?
That's right. I assume that at some point here there'll be another great group of people that will want to pass the baton to, just like it was passed to us. And I want to, I want the team to be in the middle or early in a 40-year commitment to the city and the region. And when I think about that, I just talked about maintaining ourselves as a major league city. If we sign a 40-year lease here and this vote passes, we will see the century mark as the Kansas City Royals, Major League Baseball in Kansas City. I won't be around, but I want my kids and my grandkids to have what I had in terms of what these teams do to add to the fabric and the culture of a great city.
That was Royals owner John Sherman on this show late last week talking about why he needs the county and needs your tax dollars to help fund this stadium. Now, whether or not you find that compelling is up to you at 913-408-7957 as you go to the polls. Now, also, I asked a similar question to Mark Donovan yesterday, the team president for the Kansas City Chiefs. And here's what he said on why they need a sales tax, why they need your tax dollars, in part to fund the stadium upgrades, because it's a very reasonable question to ask. The answer that no one wants to give here is because that's how it's always been done now for a generation. I mean, most of these ballparks are funded in part with public monies. Now, whether that's state money, whether that's through a hotel tax or a sales tax, depends on the city and the region and everything else. But the real answer that neither of them want to give or really can't give is because that's how these things are done all over the country. And if you don't do it in Kansas City, someone else will. Now, do I think they're leaving if this thing goes down today? No, I don't. I don't think that those threats are legitimate at all. The Royals might look somewhere else in the region, but they are not. The Chiefs are not saying, you know what, screw it, we're leaving Arrowhead. I'm seeing some of the sports talk clowns doing some of that fear-mongering on their social media pages this morning. And it's just they don't know what they're talking about. They don't get the politics of it. They just want their fancy little ballpark to sit in their press boxes and, sip on their lattes and fill out their box scores and do everything else. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't. The Chiefs are not leaving Arrowhead Stadium tomorrow if the no vote wins out today. It's just been pathetic to watch these sports teams or sports talk show hosts drop their pants for the teams in the ways that they have. It's really embarrassing, but it's also not in any way surprising. I think we've handled it, not to pat ourselves in the back, but we have not taken a side. We've just covered it and allowed everyone to say their piece. Here was Mark Donovan yesterday.
I think in our case, I go back to my first point, which is we've had a long history of doing the right things for this county. We've made commitments, we've made investments, and you go back to Ewing Kauffman and you go back to Lamar Hunt. I'll speak on the Hunt family side. It goes far beyond a professional franchise. When you think about what Lamar Hunt did when he brought the stadium, or brought the team here, and he helped design the stadium, and he invested in not only this franchise, but in this community by saying, very first meeting, saying, we've got to be active in this community. We've got to make sure that we're part of this community as an organization if we're going to be successful here. I mean, how many of your listeners had a summer job at Worlds of Fun?
Mm-hmm.
That's Lamar Hunt. That's an investment he made. That's not in any contract. That's not in any agreement. How many of your listeners are employed by Hunt Midwest, a company that he's invested in that continues to invest every single day in this community? So it goes far beyond just the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we can talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I mentioned a few times that we've had a long history of being partners in this community. There are a lot of investments that no one really thinks about that we make in this community, not only to the community asset that is Arrowhead. The stadium itself is a community asset. It's owned by the county. We're the ones who are committing millions and millions of dollars every year to make sure that asset is kept up to speed and kept up to being competitive. And the reality is, after 50 or 60 years, you're going to have to make a major renovation.
That was Mark Donovan, Chiefs team president, yesterday here on KCMO Talk Radio. So you're now going to the polls today. Are you buying it? Are you sold after what you've heard on this show in recent days from John Sherman, from Mark Donovan, and some of the others? Or are you saying no? They're done taking my money. They can do it themselves. 913-408-7957. Today's your day. You're going to the polls, and we want to hear from you all morning long here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. As you get out, you go to the polls in Jackson County. We want to hear from you after what has been an 18-month process. It all comes down to today. Vote yes or vote no on the 3/8 cent sales tax, continuing that for another several decades, as the Royals look to go downtown, and the Chiefs, of course, want to make the upgrades to Arrowhead Stadium. 913-408-7957. Bill's in Midtown. Hey, Bill, good morning.
Hello, yeah, I love sports. Grew up in it, college football, coach in Midtown for many years. But I want it, but I think we're getting a terrible deal. We're getting the short end of it, because there are too many people that are deranged walking up and down the street. There's trash everywhere. There's people on the bridges. This is the worst situation in Midtown I've ever seen. I'm 67 years old. I've ever seen it getting worse and worse. Now we're going to give the developers we got $1 billion, a $2 billion airport. We get a $1 billion stadium. We're going to reach $1 billion with trolleys. We need to get our priorities straight. It's taking care of people first. What if we were called a safe city with the crime? Why don't we do something about that? I'm for building a stadium or renovating the one we have now.
Yeah.
But we have to get our priorities straight. And
Bill, I totally agree with you. You are making excellent points. The city, in too many respects, is going to hell in a handbasket. The crime's out of control. The homeless situation's blown up. You are spot on about that. However, the only case I'll make on the other side here is that voting no today will do nothing for the crime or the homeless situation. It's not like we're going to say, let's give our 3/8 cent sales tax to the police department, right? I mean, they're in many ways, they're two separate issues where I totally agree with you and the issues this city and this town is facing right now. But today's vote is irrelevant from those points.
But voting no gives us an opportunity to find out what better we can do, what more we can do. We need to enlarge the thing, actually, to involve the people. Buildings are built for people, and so we don't have that in the numbers. They're going to give out money to some really big nonprofits, and I've seen that before many times, over and over again. They're supposed to be throwing peanuts, and I don't even see the peanuts fall in the inner city. So we need to take another year. Why rush it now? Or they're going to jump and run. If they jump and run, you know what we should do? We should do like Green Bay, Wisconsin, and we should get our own team so that our grandchildren won't have to face this situation again.
Bill, thank you very much. We appreciate you, my friend. Good luck when you go to the polls today. Listen, I agree with a lot of Bill's points. But I'm telling you right now, no matter where the Royals and the Chiefs are playing and what happens today, the issues he's talking about are not solved or fixed by the sports teams. They've been caused by incompetent, worthless politicians who in 2020 lost their minds and decided to support things like defund the police and prosecutors who aren't doing their jobs. But it's irrelevant to what we're talking about, in my opinion, today. Mike's on KCMO next up. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, man. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
This dude sounds genuine. The guy that was just on. God bless him, and I get his compassion and his thought process. But, dude, that's the exact reason we need to transform the area, because of what he said and what you just said. Because they ain't doing it now. Let's clean this place up. Let's transform it. Let's get some of those people that are vagrant or whatever and get them to work in some of the restaurants and the facilities that are there. That's the reason to transform it, because the politicians aren't going to do anything if it doesn't pass anyway, because they've proven it for the last 5-6 years and decades.
Yeah.
So, let's transform the area. Let's give it a whole different vibrance. And no, like I said the other day, if we build it, they will come. Employ some of these folks. Let's make it something to be proud of, not something to look down on and wonder why no one's doing anything.
Thank you very much there, Mike. Good points as well. Dustin, Blue Springs, you're next up. Dustin, good morning.
Morning. I went and voted this morning. I voted no. The reason why I voted no is just a simple fiscal thing. Chiefs and Royals are billion-dollar private companies. We should not be paying for their place of business to do it. They should be paying it for themselves. They make enough money to do it. They should be paying for it. Name any other company where the government basically says, yeah, we'll pay for your building, we'll pay to upkeep it and all that, while you guys make billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. No, listen, that's as compelling a point as obviously people across the political spectrum have been making here in recent weeks. How is the polling location? Busy or not?
I was the only one in there.
Okay. All right, Dustin. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Listen, that is something in a populist environment. That is something that there's not much that progressives and conservatives agree on, but that is something that in a populist climate is hitting and working for both sides. And if the no vote does win out, that'll be part of the reason why. And the teams will have overlooked that. They will have overlooked and misread the political climate of the moment across the political spectrum.